And joining us now is Matt Hayden, former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for Cyber Policy and an expert on cyber risks and regulations. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. The House Foreign Affairs Committee advanced a bill that would give President Biden the authority to ban TikTok completely in the U.S. So can you tell us how would that work?
Well, the good news is that this isn't the first bill to come across with this type of language. What we saw with the appropriations bill from last year is that there's now an action in place to remove it from all federal devices and federal systems. So we're seeing an action out of the White House as well as legislative bodies to protect Americans and American systems from what they deem as threats through all sorts of different collection methods.
But important to note, there are some lawmakers who oppose a complete ban. So what are their concerns about doing away with the app completely?
So it's a tricky business to jump into kind of that economic security piece. There's not a lot of leverage to pull for the government. They have regulatory arms for things that we depend on, like critical services. When it comes to an iPhone app or an Android app, that's a little bit of a new field for the government to be in. So it does require them to take a close look at how those authorities should be leveraged and controls that should be put in place to make sure that the due diligence is done before a threat like TikTok that has been pretty publicly announced by the White House on all angles. This is something they're trying to make sure their approach is very solid.
One thing we keep hearing about from critics and lawmakers, a major concern, is that users' personal information will actually be shared with the Chinese government. So how risky is it for the average person, like, Jay when he's recording his dances, to use the app? And how would that personal information actually be used against the U.S.?
So data collection at large by international partners is a challenge from a legal framework as well. There's different privacy rules all over the world, and the privacy laws that exist in China are different than the ones we have here. And that level of sharing with government for purposes that just don't line up with the American way really lead to a large pooling of data on Americans that could be used in an adversarial manner. Right now, we're in a strategic competition with a lot of countries that don't have our best intent in mind, and sharing personal data with those particular audiences is never a good idea.
And Matt, TikTok is adding new parental controls in response to concerns over how much time teens spend on the app and the content they view. Forget privacy concerns. So what would those controls do to quell concerns over data privacy by lawmakers?
Well, anytime an adolescent or an individual under 18 is using a digital app, you want to see these type of parental controls in place. This is just good governance for any app. So TikTok or any app that's on a phone should have some level of parental controls. So it's a good measure for any company to impose these types of controls and the freedom for parents to really determine how children are using these devices. So that's a good move, no matter who the company is. As far as privacy goes, good controls and good safety measures kind of go hand in hand, but it still doesn't alleviate the threat or the challenges the U.S. government's presented on this particular app and this particular company.
And next month, TikTok CEO actually expected to testify at a congressional hearing on Capitol Hill. Imagine that will be tense. What can we expect from that testimony?
I think they're going to outline just how they have an American-based company and that their intentions to protect user data and how they operate right now. And just to give kind of the perspective of this is what TikTok in America is, and to hear from members of the Hill on what their concerns are. I think it'll be good television for the perspective of how everyone really views sort of these international apps and how companies with international backing really are viewed through our American political system.
Matt Hayden, former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for Cyber Policy. We sure appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.